Lead. You've heard about it. You've heard about its devastating impacts in Flint, Michigan. You've heard about the danger of lead paint to young children. We often hear a lot about lead as it relates to water quality, lead in pipes, and lead in paint, but we don't often hear about the issue of lead in soil. But lead in soil is a fairly common issue in urban environments, and New York City is no exception. Lead in soil has affected communities throughout the city, including North Brooklyn. That's why North Brooklyn Neighbors, an organization fighting for better public spaces and environmental justice in North Brooklyn since 1994, has been leading workshops to address their concerns about lead in soil, provide resources to get their soil tested, and give them the tools and knowledge to create healthy and safe spaces for them, their families, and their neighbors. To understand some solutions, first let's talk about why lead in soil is an issue in the first place in North Brooklyn. For years, North Brooklyn was home to manufacturing and industry whose practices were not protective of the environment. Oil refineries leaked gasoline into the ground, and energy-intensive industries such as ironworks burned lead-containing coal. Glass-making, pottery, and lead smelting all used lead in their processes.
This community was one of the epicenters for the Industrial Revolution of the United States. Standard Oil and oil refining began in this community. Many other really intense industries were here for over 100 years.
Those decades of poor environmental management led to elevated lead levels in some North Brooklyn children. High lead levels in children can delay development, cause fatigue and irritability, and lead to learning disabilities. But here's the good news. Thanks to environmental advocacy at the local and national level, things are getting better. Lead paint was banned in New York City homes in 1960 and nationally in 1978. Lead in gasoline was phased out in 1995. Between 2005 and 2017, there was an 89% decline in New York City children with elevated blood lead levels.
To take a precautionary approach, that's probably the better way of dealing with it. There's no need to lose sleep over this, because there are ways you can reduce the health risk. And you can do on your own even to get away, from the potential hazard from the lead.
It's still an issue, but it's a manageable issue. So the next question is, what can you do? Answer: a lot.
Some of the things are really basic, things like washing your hands after you're playing outside. Also making sure that toys that you're playing with outside don't come into the house. Especially for children when they're in that stage, when they're kind of exploring the world with their hands, making sure that they're not ingesting any of the lead or any soil. But there are other things that if you do find out that you do have high lead levels or high soil lead levels, things like gardening with a raised bed, so that way you're putting clean, fresh soil that doesn't have high lead levels in, and then you can kind of basically grow whatever you want.
So you may be asking yourself, where can I go to test my soil? You can contact North Brooklyn Neighbors for resources. There are lead soil testing facilities located here in New York City that we can connect you to.
If you're concerned, get your soil tested.
If there are elevated levels of lead in your soil, don't panic. High levels are fairly common in urban areas, and there are many ways to stay safe through instituting simple practices and making modifications to your yard.
If you are aware of the issue, and if you do some of those things that we've talked about, like hand washing, or like being extra careful when children are putting things in their mouths, or making sure that there's grass instead of bare soil in the yard, then parents can feel pretty safe that they're taking some precautions that are really helpful to ensure that their children aren't going to have high blood lead levels.
So while the issue of lead in soil can be daunting, there's a lot you can do to keep yourself and your loved ones safe.
What we try to do in our lead and soils workshops is equip folks to be what we call like lead ambassadors. So you went through 4 hours of training, and at the very end, we provide a resource kit of tools to deal with lead.
Over the course of 12 workshops throughout the community, North Brooklyn Neighbors shared their expertise, facilitated lead testing, brought in lead and soil experts to speak to participants, distributed resources for home gardens, and connected neighbors working to improve their gardens, homes, and public spaces.
I think North Brooklyn Neighbors are at the forefront of fighting these soil lead contamination issue, and I think this will make our neighborhood safer with with our concerted effort.
I'm invested in North Brooklyn Laborers supporting community members as they become informed advocates for the neighborhood. We want to ensure that they are equipped with the tools and the resources that allow them to make important decisions for the community now and in the future.
Those workshops and this video are all meant to help residents gain knowledge about the problem of lead in soil, guide them towards solutions, and serve the mission of North Brooklyn neighbors to advance community-based solutions on issues of public space and the environment through activism, education, and collaboration to create a more just, healthy, and safe place to live and work.